right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
All right, this is pertaining to the coming of Melchizedek, again, whose authority comes from the line of Zadok, and the everlasting covenant of peace as the Prince of Peace through Phinehas and ultimately Zadok, and not through the Eli covenant, which was altogether broken because the princes refused to differentiate between clean and unclean, light and dark, day and night, good and evil, bitter and sweet, a whole host of other things, turning a blind eye to the wicked behavior. And so check this out. I'm exhausted, guys. I'm going to try to push through this one. It's a little bit of a longer segment. So concerning the figure Melchizedek, boy, guys, if you're listening to somebody who believes that there is no thing as an order of Zadok, they do not know the scriptures, and the truth is not in them. Period. It's embarrassing, honestly. Terrible scholarship. Concerning what the scripture says, in this year, this is again scroll 11, Q13, column 2, it says, and concerning what the scripture says, in this year, and speaking of a year of Yovel, Jubilee, you shall return every one of you to your property, and what is also written, and this is the manner of the remission. Every creditor shall remit the claim that is held against a neighbor, not exacting it of a neighbor who is a member of the community, because God's remission has been proclaimed. This, of course, is corroborated in Deuteronomy 15:2. The interpretation is that it applies to the last days and concerns the captives, just as Isaiah said, to proclaim the Jubilee to the captives in Isaiah 61, verse 1, and whose teachers have been hidden and kept secret. See, the Melchizedek was largely dormant and operating in the periphery, and that frames the backdrop of the priests who believed on him in the book of Acts, and that sets the stage for the testimony that the pasture that you guys should be grazing in, not Judaism, not rabbinic Judaism, not the Talmud, not Mishnah, Gemara, Kabbalah, Catholicism. That is the testimony that needs to be upheld. They were given charge over the Sabbaths. So any discussion about proper timekeeping being restored and error being rectified has to come through that path and not some path that's crooked off to the side. So left off about verse 5, they're largely out of sight, even from the inheritance of the Melchizedek, and they are the inheritance of Melchizedek, who will return to them what is rightfully theirs. He will proclaim to them the Jubilee, thereby releasing them from the debt of all their sins. This word will thus come in the first Shabbat week. Later is a perversion associated with lunar timekeeping. We'll talk about how and why, and how anyone that keeps the moon as a head does not get out from under the curse that comes along with violating the law of sevens. He will proclaim to them the Jubilee, thereby releasing them from all the debt and all their sins. This word, this proclamation, occurs in the first 7 of the Jubilee period that follows 9 Jubilee periods. Then the Day of Atonement shall follow at the end of the 10th Jubilee period, when he shall atone for all the sons of light. You are sons of the light, sons of the day. You don't walk in darkness like Judaism or Islam or Christianity teaches. And the people who are predestined to Melchizedek. Upon them, that's fragmentary. Let me skip to the next passage that's whole. For this is the time decreed for the year of Melchizedek's favor. That's a modified version in Isaiah 61:2, of course. It says that here even in the footnote. And for hosts to be gathered with the holy ones of God, for the kingdom of judgment, just as it is written concerning him in the songs of David. Now this is important. This is at a specific time. This is after the resurrection that this authority is seen as he is seated at the right hand of the Father. He is then described as a godlike being, but not God. Has taken his place in the council of the mighty. This is in Psalms 82, Psalms 89, and various and sundry ways, and numerous places elsewhere in Scripture. It's in Revelation. You got the Ancient of Days, of course, mentioned in Daniel, and then in the Revelation you've got God and the Lamb. There clearly one is sitting on the throne that is the Alpha and Omega, is the Father, and the Son. Not a new concept, guys. It is, of course, also they're described figuratively as a lamb. So, Scripture also says about him, verse 10 and 11, Scripture also says about him, over it, take your seat in the highest heaven. Remember those layers of heaven we talked about in an Enochic testimony that Judaism doesn't want you to know about? A divine being will judge the peoples. Psalms 7 through 8. Concerning what Scripture says, how long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Psalms 82:2. The interpretation, of course, applies to Belial and the spirits predestined to him, because all of them have rebelled, turning from Father's precepts, and so becoming utterly wicked. Therefore, Melchizedek will thoroughly prosecute the vengeance required by Father's statutes. In that day he will deliver them from the power of Belial and from the power of all the spirits predestined to him. Those are going to be every foul, unclean spirit that is cast out of heavens above and down to earth, where it will be a foul cage in a prison. You don't want to Shabbat Shalom too long in prison. And so it'll be cast down to earth from heaven to be judged, awaiting his lot, if you will. Allied with Melchizedek will be all the righteous divine beings. Did you see that? This is that which all the divine beings, fragmentary, it ended there. Here's the Anointed One who comes to join. This visitation is the day of salvation that he has decreed through Isaiah the prophet concerning the captives, inasmuch as Scripture says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger who announces peace. Again, you don't get to be that high priest unless you are through the right established path. Again, the covenant of everlasting peace coming through Zadok and the seed of David, of course. So that's the Melchi-Zedek, King of Righteousness position. And the way of righteousness is spoken evil by the wicked, it says. So they're not going to like the message of the restoration of Israel, or the message of Zadokah righteousness, if you will. Sadiq righteous is what we're talking about here, and a king of it, and a king of peace. It's only made possible that one way we just described, or that was just described. The messenger who brings good news, and that of salvation, of course, who says to Zion, your divine being reigns, Isaiah 52:7. The Scriptures' interpretation, the mountains, the prophets, they who are sent to proclaim Father's truth and to prophesy to all Israel. And the messenger is anointed of the Spirit, of whom Daniel spoke after the 62. That's why the rabbis hate Daniel and Ezekiel and Enoch. They hate it. It exposes their Talmudic dark traditions and origins. And the messenger is anointed of the Spirit, of whom Daniel spoke. After the 62 weeks, an anointed one shall be cut off. The messenger who brings good news, who announces salvation, is one of whom it is written to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, the day of vengeance of our God, Mighty One, to comfort all who mourn. The Scripture's interpretation is, of course, he is to instruct them about all the periods of history and for eternity, and in the statutes of truth. Dominion passes from Belial and returns to the sons of light by the judgment of our Father, just as it is written concerning him. Your divine being reigns. This is all throughout the prophets, of course. Zion is the congregation of all the sons of righteousness who uphold the covenant and turning from. Don't think it odd that the turning from is squarely associated with the tekufot, which men err according to, by not properly recognizing either the role of the stars during that process or the sun, or the moon for that matter, and that those revolutions, those tekufot, of which there are several described in the canon. So, lost my train of thought there for just a second. So teshuvah, you don't have teshuvah without the tekufah, and that should be squarely imprinted in your mind. Yes, rightly returning to the light, the truth, Father, the head of days, is also directly connected to timekeeping. Zion is the congregation of all the sons of righteousness who uphold the covenant and turn from walking in the way of the people. Your divine being is Melchizedek, who will deliver them from the power of Belial. Concerning what Scripture says, then you shall have the trumpet sounded loud in all the land. Modification of Leviticus 25:9, and not a bad one. So, how cool is that?